Morning all. Just going to do our usual intro, running through the project ambition, which I'm sure by now the majority of our attendees are really familiar with. But just to reiterate, we are looking to provide a service which is easily understood, fair, accessible, and beneficial to our residents. So the tube map for the service, the 3 lines that we're looking to create journeys for our customers, the orange line being all about customers being able to self-source, help themselves. The light blue line in the middle is for customers that need a little bit more support. We will be creating plans with them, nudging them along, checking in with them. And then at the bottom we have the dark blue line, which is geared to people that need much more support, more holistic support from different departments within the council and additional third parties. And this would involve creating multidisciplinary plans and a lot of collaboration between different workers. So the graph here shows the level of service that residents might need. So you can see it's coloured in the lines that I was just talking about. So the people on the self-service line would typically be people that are further away from homelessness, perhaps not at immediate risk, and there are people that we're able to identify a greater number of strengths and assets for. Moving down the graph, we've got the people on the middle line where we're coaching and supporting them, and then the people in the bottom left-hand corner there, the dark blue line, are those that I was talking about that need more of the holistic support because they're closer to homelessness and it's harder for us to identify their strengths and assets. So I hand over to Emily.
Yeah, so we have done a lot of talking about the tube map and these journeys over the past few months. But we thought we'd take today to do a bit of a reflection and think about what some of these actually look and feel like in practice. And you'll have seen a lot of the time, we do these illustrations and we tell these stories to tell, concepts of what it could be like in the future. But actually today, what I want to tell you 2 stories of what is absolutely, completely possible right now with the new tools from, single view, shared plan, snapshot, etc., and the new ways of working that support this. What kind of services could you deliver right now to residents on that self-service line and on that multidisciplinary team line? So I'm going to take 2 minutes to tell you 2 different fictional stories to show how all of these different tools and new ways of working can work in practice. So I'll start with that self-service journey with a character called Selena because of the alliteration. So Selena has lost her job and will struggle to pay her rent even with benefits. And so she calls the benefits duty line for advice. She gets some information about claiming universal credit and she's asked about other areas of her life. And the officer captures this snapshot as they go. Through that, they learn that she's received an eviction notice from her landlord and then connect Selena with a colleague who's doing triage for homelessness assessments. That officer then completes the triage on Jigsaw as normal and opens Selena's record on single view. They can create a shared plan alongside Selena and add a few actions for her to complete before her assessment, which is booked for the following week. They're also able to request a few documents from the evidence store for Selena to upload before her assessment. So at this point, Selena gets an SMS, and that includes a link to her shared plan, and she gets a follow-up text message asking her to provide some documents. And then 48 hours before her appointment, she'll get an automatic SMS reminder of the actions that she needs to complete. That includes watching a video about what to expect from the council during her search for a settled home, and also a quiz that helps her understand her housing options, and she can tick off items as she goes. During the assessment, the officer asks those strengths-based questions that Claire just talked about to identify if the self-service journey is appropriate for Selena. And then they work together to build on that shared plan, all the information she had from the pre-assessment plan, and turn it into a personal housing plan. And they note actions they'll both do to prevent her homelessness. So then at this point, Selena starts to take the actions that are assigned to her. So she opens one of the links in a step-by-step guide and explains how to find her own private rental property. And so as she begins her property search, she isn't totally sure what she can afford as the benefit cap applies to her. So she uses the Google form, which connects her to the housing supply team, which notifies Hackney of properties, and she'll be advised if they're suitable and affordable. So at this point, she now can find a place that she can afford and might get some support, financial help from Hackney to make that move. And then a few weeks later, she might receive a text message from a tenancy sustainment officer to check how she's settling in. So as I say, that is the self-service journey, or an idea of what it could look like. And all of those little orange underlined bits are real available tools for you to use right now to deliver this kind of service to residents. And I'll now tell you a slightly different story about someone who's in a much more complex situation and needs this multidisciplinary team support. So this is Maddie, again, going through the alliteration. So Maddie has mental health issues, and she's being supported by a range of professionals from within benefits and housing needs, but also mental health and social services. And she's at risk of being evicted from her temporary accommodation due to disruptive behaviour and rent arrears. So the hostels team, TA Income Collection, and others are in touch with her social worker and her care coordinator by email. And they decide to form a multidisciplinary team, bringing together social services, mental health, and housing needs to provide Maddie with that holistic support. So Harriet from the hostels team sets up a video call with colleagues from adult social care and mental health services. And they also invite Maddie and her advocate along so that they can create a shared plan and a goal to work towards together. They agree that the shared goal at this is sustain my placement in temporary accommodation, and they add actions that everyone will take to meet that goal. At this point, Maddie and her advocate receive a copy of that, so they get a link to the shared plan via email, and they can see what's been agreed. And there's a really clear outline there of the steps that Maddie needs to take, as well as documenting all of the support the council's doing across teams and services to help her sustain her placement. So at this point, we can imagine that Maddie doesn't take steps to pay off her rent arrears, and the council makes a decision to discharge their duty. Maddie, supported by her advocate, puts that case forward for review. So the reviews and appeals team could then use the shared plan to see what was agreed and completed, when and by who, and that can stand up as evidence. So having a visual timeline of all the work the council has done to support Maddie to sustain her placement in temporary accommodation. So at this point, you might close this case by having another multidisciplinary team meeting to reflect on the case and share learnings across the service. So I'm going to now hand over to Scotty, who'll tell you a little bit about Teams and Tools, or TNT.
Cool, thanks Emily. So as Emily's kind of described, there's been quite a number of tools that will kind of help support all of you kind of with helping residents down those multiple pathways. So we've developed all these different guides for every different team within the service, just to tell you what situations you can use the tools in and how can you access them and kind of why would you use it. So they'll be kind of rolling out to the operating managers and team managers, and then they'll kind of be shown to all the teams shortly. So look out for those. And then what we're showing you today, so once again, we have a very big day. So we'll give you an update of where the shared plan is. We'll be showing you the evidence store, and then we'll be doing 2 quick lightning updates on Snapshot and the self-service tools. So I'm going to pass it over to Chris.
Good morning, everybody. So yeah, our first update is for the shared plan, which is a tool to enable officers and residents to collaborate on the shared plan of action. And we've designed this to be used in different parts of the service depending on the level of need that somebody has. So for residents on the light blue line, the plan could be shared between a resident and their housing officer as a PHP. And for somebody on the dark blue line with more complex needs, a plan could be created and shared between professionals from both inside and outside the service to support their case. So last sprint, we started running a couple of experiments, which we'll update you on today. And the first of these was testing a pre-assessment plan, or a pre-HP, as we've kind of dubbed it, to see if providing residents with an action plan before their homelessness assessment helps them take action early and come better prepared. And then the second experiment is trialing multidisciplinary shared plans for residents with multiple and complex needs. And here we want to find out if the shared plan improves the experience for residents and staff. So here's an example of a pre-assessment plan, and we ran an experiment with customer services where we created and sent plans to 12 residents who'd been booked in for homelessness assessment. And we gave each resident a set of actions to complete before their assessment, such as taking the housing quiz and uploading relevant documents. And we wanted to find out how many people would complete these actions, and if residents' level of engagement helps officers understand if they suit the self-service journey. And lastly, does it help residents know what to expect and understand the level of participation that will be required from them, as part of working with the council. And so results from this. So out of the 12 residents who were sent plans, 7 completed actions, and of those 7 residents, a total of 52 out of 67 actions were completed. Now overall, when we take into consideration those who didn't complete any actions at all, 52% of actions were completed, which is a really encouraging start and gives us confidence that this could be something useful going forward. So now I'll hand over to Tara to tell you a bit about her experience using this as part of an assessment.
Hi, so this week on Monday I had an assessment at 2:15 with a client who had used this working condition plan, and she had only ticked off 3 out of the 11 actions, which was the housing quiz, 6-step private rented guide, and uploading her ID. But 1 second, honey. Sorry, my daughter's on my lap. However, there was no way of me checking if she'd actually uploaded her ID, so I'd like to know how to do that in the future. I found it really useful. Even though she only completed 3 out of the 11 actions, she was prepared to show me everything she'd had, because it was listed of what she needed. So when I asked her to email me a copy of all of her documents, literally within 30 seconds, it was in my email box. So I think that this shared plan is really useful to know exactly what she needed before I asked for it. Also, I built on this shared plan as the PHP, so I didn't have to use it through Jigsaw. So I think I actually prefer it to Jigsaw, because Jigsaw is a bit wordy and a bit long, whereas this way she can see everything that I'm doing and everything that I've asked her to do, so I find that really useful. Thank you.
Thanks, Tara. So we're pleased to say that the experiment is going to be extended, and customer services will be creating and sending out plans to residents after they've been triaged. And Kaz, Michelle and Cameron will be exploring what impact this has on the customer services team, and if spending 10 to 15 minutes up front creating plans for residents is worth it. They'll also be looking at how the process can best work and leading on creating new content and how it can work and linking with the triage info pack that they've been working on. And ultimately, this is going to help us understand if and how we might move towards using the shared plan instead of a Jigsaw PHP. So on to multidisciplinary shared plans, and I'm pleased to say that we've now got 4 plans in use with residents with complex needs, and this has been a real collaborative effort from colleagues from many different teams from both inside and out of the service, as you can see from all the different teams that are listed on the screen there. Now, to measure the impact of these MDT plans, we want to see if working in this way will help save staff time with casework, and if it could replace the email chains that are currently in use. So does it improve the experience for staff and help colleagues work together to solve a problem? Does it improve the experience for a resident and increase the transparency or a sense of ownership? And lastly, does it result in better outcomes for residents? For example, does it help get cases resolved sooner and increase staff confidence? So what's next? So multidisciplinary plans will continue to be tested now in an 8-week pilot, and this slide explains how the process will work. So to start with, participants will be identified by Jennifer Winter from the cases that get elevated to her. Now, and then once the participating officers have been identified, they'll create an initial benchmarking survey, and then a lead officer will be identified and will set up a meeting to create a plan. Then the team and the resident will agree on a shared action, so a shared goal and actions that will be added to the plan, and then those actions will be reviewed in follow-up meeting, and at the end of the pilot there'll be a follow-up survey to evaluate the process and see how it's gone for everybody involved.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, everybody. So a quick update on the evidence tool. So hopefully you're aware, evidence tool is a successor to the doc upload tool. So it's a tool that allows staff, but importantly also residents, to simply and quickly upload their evidence documents, and staff to then be able to manage them all in one place, and it automatically get pulled into a single view. So we have built an end-to-end experience now. So you can see, as staff, you can request documents that you need for an assessment or for whatever interaction you're doing with that resident. They can easily upload those evidence using the tool. You can see those documents and reject them or accept them if they are suitable. And then automatically they get pulled into single view. So you no longer need to go trudging through different systems to find documents. They're all in one place. How does this align to the service vision? So predominantly, we're hoping that this tool will help save staff time around approach. So when customers first come into the service and we need to know a level of information about them and collect documents to go along with their case, but also useful throughout the process for change of circumstance documents or any other documents that you might need throughout that journey. So over to Matt to do a demo of the tool.
All right, so you might have seen the doc upload tool before. It was kind of our first attempt at something that residents can use to send documents to the council. It's still, so with the evidence store work we've done, it still looks pretty much the same, but we've made some changes to how and where the documents are stored. This new place is called the evidence store, and it means that we can do some cool new things. So I'm in my single view now, and there's a new button there called Create Doc Upload URL. So if I hit that, it's going to give me a request URL, a document request URL, and I can copy this and I can email it, or I can SMS it to a resident along with kind of what I want them to upload, what I need. Now the resident will get this URL, and when they open it, you're going to see something pretty similar to what you just saw before. So it's still the doc upload tool. As I say, it's just the doc's going to be stored in a slightly different place. So I might just show you something quickly. What this has actually done in the background when I've created this request is, it's stored some of this data from single view and some of the residents' data. And what that means is that these documents that they upload can be searched using this data. So, for example, there's in the council tax reference there. So if I search for documents based on that council tax reference and the name of the person, then this document's going to show up. So it means that this evidence store service can be plugged into other systems, and the documents that we store in it can be viewed in those systems. So if I go back to the upload tool now where I've made the request, I'm going to upload a couple of photos of my cat Giles. So I'm just going to grab those. Where is he? Okay. All right, now let's go. I'll do one more just to make sure that you get to see my cat because he's pretty cool. Right. And I'm going to add my name here. I'm going to change my name just because it looks a bit confusing when the single view record says Matthew Miller and my name is also Matthew Miller. So I'm just going to put in some fake data here. And then I'm going to say, I want you to see my cat. I'm going to submit that. And so this is what the resident will see, that they've uploaded these two documents, the time of submission. And now if I go back to my single view and I hit reload, fingers crossed, so you can see my two documents here. I've got Giles 1 and Giles 2. I can, it tells you the date, who requested it, and if I open this here, I can download the file, And there is Giles for the world to see, sitting on my laptop case. So the service that does all this background work, it's not actually tied to this doc upload tool. As I say, it just it stores this kind of data here in the background and allows you to search on it and kind of pull it into wherever you need it. We've just used the doc upload tool as kind of a first step to prove it works, and in the future it could be plugged into something like Chris showed us the other week, that really cool looking prototype he showed us. Before I finish that, another cool thing that it does is once these documents have been uploaded, it sends an email to the person that requested it. So I requested it, and it sends out this email. So hi to me, John Smith has uploaded the documents to review, the description that John Smith put in. So you can either review the documents over here in the upload tool, or again, you can see them in the single view there. The other thing that we've added to the upload tool is this. So we've put a couple of tabs here. Before it was just one long list of documents. Now, once these documents have kind of been processed, depending on the department you work in, you might not want to see them anymore. So we can now archive these documents. And if I go back to now, that's going to appear in the archive section. So I know that I've just still got these 3 documents here to process. But yeah, that's about it from me. Yeah, so just a brief summary here. So you can now create a document request URL to the single view to send to a resident. I saw a couple of questions in the chat just now, so it does send a unique one to each resident. Yeah, so it kind of ties their data to this thing so that they can be searched. The resident can then upload documents using this URL. Once uploaded, the request will receive an email to say there's some documents have been uploaded, and you can view these in the single view, and you can archive them once you're done with them. So, yep, that's about it from me.
Cheers, Matt. I don't think any product demo is complete without cats. So we have got the product to good shape so that it can be used across the service, and to understand whether we are having the impact that we want in saving staff time and improving the experience for residents. We have done some benchmarking over the last couple of weeks to understand how long it currently takes staff to process and request documents. So we've managed to get a fair amount of data, thanks to Glyn and a lot of your hard work in giving it to us. And broadly, processing documents either in real life, so people come to the contact centre with physical documents to be scanned and put into the right systems, or via post or via email, takes on average around 5 minutes per document. And we know that high use teams like customer service will process around 500 documents a day. So we know processing documents takes a long time, and hopefully once we measure how long it takes for staff to request documents using the doc upload tool, we can show how much time we are saving you. So how much time we're saving staff to be able to spend more direct time with residents, actually preventing homelessness instead of the admin and processing of documents. So we go to what's next. So we are working with the council to understand how this tool could benefit more services than their benefit and housing needs service. Across the council, we collect documents, and this tool is not just unique to this service. We're trying to explore other areas of the council that this could be scaled to, and create a plan for developing this product further, so that it works not just for this service, very perfectly for this service, but also other services as well, and creates better joined up working. So doesn't matter what area of the service that council that people come into, documents are uploaded and managed in a consistent way. So stay tuned for the future of this, but I hope very soon we will make sure that it is available to everyone in this service, so that you can start requesting documents from single view, and the customers that you're working with can upload using the doc upload tool, and automatically they'll get pulled into their record.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Elle and Matt. I will now do a bit of a lightning update around Snapshot. So as you know, this is about building a bigger picture of the resident situation when they contact any part of the service. And using Snapshot is at a really key point on that tube map. If we can take a bit of time to build, excuse me, build a bigger picture of someone's situation, understanding their vulnerabilities and any strengths or assets, it means we can determine what level of service is appropriate, whether it's that orange line, like Selena's story you heard at the beginning, or the more multidisciplinary working, or something in between around coaching and support. So over the last 2 weeks, we've run 6 drop-in sessions for the 18 officers across 11 teams who've been using Snapshot. And to hear some of the kind of qualitative stories of impacts and the potential for impact that staff see this having. We've also done an anonymous survey to get some more data and start to see if staff are doing anything different as a result. So some of the headlines that stood out for us was 63%, so almost 2 in 3 people agreed that they learned something new or unexpected about the resident through completing the snapshot, which is great because it means that we're building up a kind of richer picture of residents and gathering more information that will help us provide an appropriate service. And similarly, 64% took an extra step after using the snapshot, recommending a resource or a useful service, which again is brilliant as it all aligns towards that overall goal of everyone and everything going towards preventing homelessness. And just yesterday, finally, I had a catch up with Sandra about capturing an appropriate level of information for DV cases. So I'll be linking in with Dina and the learning and development team to make sure that officers feel confident in the level of information they're capturing there for sensitive cases. I'm going to run you through 4 quotes and nice little stories that stood out during those feedback sessions from officers. So this is starting with a customer services officer who was using Snapshot and learnt through that interaction that the customer they were working with had mental health issues, and they said they'd like to capture it so that the council could help him better. And off the back of that, they gave the resident a council tax exemption form for their mental health, and that's really helped. Another story was from an officer in the Housing Advice and Options team who said they tried to phone the resident and realised through that the only language he spoke was Polish. And actually, despite him, that might be buried in case notes somewhere, but in no place was that recorded prominently on his record. And at the same time, they were continuing to send out lots of complicated housing letters. And then off the back of doing this, they're now able to make sure that they are, of course, going through the language line so the resident can understand what is being communicated. We heard from an officer on the Settled Homes team about the potential for this to help you tailor your engagement. So whether that's knowing if someone had mental health issues, or in the case of DV, you might not want to phone them directly. You might want to send an SMS first to check if it's an appropriate time to call. And really noting the benefit of this, that tenants, particularly those who have sensitive issues like mental health or DV, tend to be pretty tired of repeating themselves. So having this prominently on the front of someone's record could really help the tenant experience as well. And finally, we heard from an officer in the benefits team who told us a few stories about previous claimants that they've worked with who've tried to take their own life. And that's a really important point that you'd like to have visible on someone's record, because if someone's not responded, rather than just cancelling the claim, if you knew that, you would take the time to do a bit more investigation and give that extra support when needed. So those are some really nice stories that stood out for us when we were doing those feedback sessions. And I thought I'd just finish telling you an end-to-end success story that starts to show how Snapshot can lead into SMS tool and can lead into shared plan. So this, the resident that this officer was working with had transitioned from housing benefit to universal credit and had received an overpayment of £350. But through doing that snapshot and checking vulnerabilities and assets, they did note that that was a vulnerable customer. So they used the SMS tool to text her and explain that they could break that overpayment down into £10 instalments. and then could use the shared plan to set themselves in action of following up with the overpayments team. So really nice real-world example there of how you can start to use these various tools to provide an appropriate level of service to residents. So what's next for Snapshot? This is yours. It's available for everyone to use. So look out for that little green things to note box, which is on the left-hand side in single view. And then tomorrow, our team is being assessed on this. So we're being assessed on whether it meets the needs of users. So that's you as officers, the people who are using this. Have we built it in the right way? And how are we measuring the success of it? And the results of that assessment will tell us if this meets government guidelines and if it's worth continuing development on this tool as well. So I'll hand over to Scotty and Housing Supply team for our red carpet finale of self-service tools.
Great, thanks Emily. So as most of you know, we've kind of been exploring and experimenting a few different tools for self-service. So we've been looking at a lot of different web-based services and tools that a resident can kind of use on this orange path to kind of help find a successful outcome for them. So some of these tools that we've been kind of creating over the last few months is kind of looking at interactive guides. So specifically around how do I look for a property. We're going to do a world premiere of the video, so I won't spoil any of that. And we've also kind of been working on a housing options quiz that residents can kind of do to kind of understand what are their possible kind of housing options. So I'm going to pass it over to Genevieve, who's going to take it away.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Scotty. We, just putting our heads together, we thought it would be important for a client who was approaching the Council for Homeless Support could be prepared and we could start managing their expectations. So we prepared a video to start managing those expectations, and we decided, obviously, that it needed to be very short, concise, so that we could keep their attention with very clear words and really cover some of those points that continue to be a stumbling block for our clients on things we think they need to understand. And then to finish this up, I want to hand this over to Cam and let him take over.
Good morning, everyone. Like my colleague said and Scott said, the basis of this video is trying to make customers understand how things work in housing from the beginning to the end, what kind of services they expect from us, as well as services, the evidence we require from themselves as well. The video will cover each step from the beginning to the end in terms of affordability and placement and the whole process going through from the moment they walk into the service and until to the end as well. But yeah, would like feedback from people as well. If people can just let us know what we could do going forward as well with the video, how we can improve the video as well, and how we can improve our own services as well. That'd be brilliant. If you speak to Scott or Emily, that'd be fantastic as well. I'll hand you back over to Emily as well. Oh, Scott, sorry.
Cool. So if we have a little bit of a drum roll for the world premiere, you might see some familiar faces. I think they're all going to be very famous after this. So let's get into it.
What to expect from the council during your search for a settled home?
As you know, due to the housing crisis, there is a severe shortage of social housing available in Hackney, and over 13,000 families are currently on the waiting list. For the majority of our residents, the best option to find settled housing is in the private rented sector.
Affordable social housing is more available in other parts of the country, and we can help you secure this. Otherwise, we can help you find your own private rented property.
We will help you understand what is suitable and affordable so you can look for properties on your own. Finding a suitable home is not just about size, it's also about making sure it is safe, lawful, and that it meets your household needs.
Affordability is making sure you have money left over to live on after paying the rent. We can advise on how you may be affected by the benefit cap, local housing allowance rates, and maximise your income from benefits.
Visit hackney.gov.uk to see tools other residents are using to find a settled home.
Round of applause. So as you can kind of see, we've kind of been exploring a number of these tools, and these are kind of some of the things that we can start to explore next, from setting expectations, finding a property, and to kind of sustaining a tenancy. So you will have seen we kind of have 3 big green ticks there now, and we'll kind of make sure that these are kind of having the impact that we want over the kind of coming months, and then we'll be kind of looking at how do we kind of start some of these things within the service that you can own as well to help residents have an amazing self-service journey. So I'm going to pass over to Claire again.
Hello. So I'm going to talk about what's going to happen next. This probably seems a good point that some of you may be aware that the Future Gov Made Tech team are saying goodbye to us, and this is their last show and share for the moment. We hope it's not goodbye, and perhaps it'll just be farewell. What I'd personally like to say, I think from the service, a massive thank you to the team. You've helped us deliver some great tools that are going to make staff's lives easier and also customer journeys more efficient. Just to say from a personal perspective, I've really enjoyed working with you all, and I've learned loads, and I've now got starring in video, so I mean, what more could you ask for? So just to go forward, we're going to talk about what each tool, who is responsible for it going forward, and what happens next. So the Snapshot tool, myself and Thomas Akechi in benefits will be leading on this one. We've already talked about the assessment that's going on, but as most of you be aware, it's live, so everybody can use it, and it will be supported by training from the learning and development team going forward. Evidence store, leading on that will be Hackney ICT. We already know that it gives officers access to, from Matt's demo, I'm going to be giving officers access to request docs directly through single view. Shared plan, 2 versions of this going on at the moment. So the pre-assessment part of the plan, which has been the bit which customer services have started to build with the actions that customers can carry out before their assessment, that's generally going to be led on by Carol, Kaz, Michelle and Cameron. And then the other part of it, which is the multidisciplinary team plan, which is geared towards the vision of the dark line where people need more holistic support, and we're pulling in different people from around the council and third parties, and that's going to be leading with myself and Emily. So just move to the tools that we're more familiar with. Single view, up and running for some time now, and it has already been being led on by Glyn and Soraya, and that will continue. And there is plans at the moment for expansion of that across other council departments. Waiting time tool, again, it's been on our website for some time, being used by customers and staff. There's some analysis work going on at the moment around what's happening with the tool when people have a 5 or 6 bedroom need. And the SMS tool, which a lot of people have been using generally on a day-to-day basis, everybody in the service has access to. Again, we continue using it as you are, and if there's any problems, let me know. So, although sadly we're saying farewell to Future Gov Made Tech, we are not saying goodbye to show and shares. So we will see you in 2 weeks, and I'll keep my fingers crossed that we can keep this high standard maintained.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Claire. Yeah, I think we are totally happy to stay on the call. If anyone's got any questions, we've got a little bit of time left if people want to come off mute, or we can go through some of the questions in the chat. Be nice, nice to hear people's reflections on the show and share and where all the tools are at. If you do need to head off, no worries. But we'll be sticking around for 10 more minutes or so if people want to have a bit of a chat.